Okay, I'm about to make apple cobbler. So the first thing I'm gonna do is you want to cut all your apples into thin slices like this, as thin as possible. Then I want to add 6 tablespoons of lemon juice to my pot, and one 1.5 teaspoons of lemon zest. I add a little bit of butter to my skillet. So now I'm going to add my apples to the skillet. I peel, core, and slice the apples. Then I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar, of white sugar, to the apples. 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. And 3/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar. Packed light brown sugar. Five teaspoons of flour. I'm going to incorporate this in. Incorporate this in a little bit before I add the 5 teaspoons of flour. 5 tablespoons of flour, rather. I'm going to add 5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Incorporate this a little bit. Then I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. One and a half teaspoons of cinnamon. One-fourth of a teaspoon of kosher salt. And 1/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. Now I'm going to incorporate everything together. And I'm gonna cook this. I'm gonna cook these for about, on medium heat, for about another 10 minutes. Maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. I'm gonna cook this for about maybe another 15 minutes. And I'm gonna just stir it every so often. Every like 3 minutes I'm gonna stir it. Okay, these apples are just about ready. I've been cooking them while stirring them for about almost 15 minutes now. About 10 minutes. So now what I want to do is I want to put them in my baking dish. I want to take my apples and put them in my baking dish and let them cool off for a little bit. Yep, let them cool off for just a little bit. Yep, I'm gonna just let them cool in my baking dish for a little bit. Just scraping any of the excess sugar and cinnamon. That was in the pot. Okay, then I'm just gonna let these cool off a little bit for a little bit. Let all these cool. Okay. Now I'm gonna take my. Now I'm gonna start working on my crust. So I'm gonna do is take my large bowl, preheat my oven to 375. It's already been preheated. Then to this bowl, I'm gonna add 2.5 cups of flour, 2.5 cups of unbleached, all-purpose flour, King Arthur. Two and a half cups of all-purpose flour. Two and a half cups of all-purpose flour. Then I'm gonna add one. It says 1.5, but I'm gonna add about a cup of white sugar. I'm gonna add about a cup. I don't need that much sugar. The recipe calls for 1.5 cups. I'm gonna add 1 cup of white sugar. And then I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. One teaspoon of kosher salt. And 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And I'm gonna put this to the side. And in this bowl, I'm gonna add 1 egg. And 1/2 of a cup of buttermilk. Okay, so I'm gonna take 1/2 of a cup of buttermilk, incorporate it into this. So now I want to whisk all this together. Whisk all my dry ingredients together. Then I want to whisk my wet ingredients together. Then I want to take a stick of butter and cut it into small squares. A stick of butter that's been frozen. I froze the butter by leaving it in the freezer for several hours. Cut it in the small squares. Take the stick, cut it like this. Cut it into small squares. Then I'm gonna take the squares, I'm gonna add it to my dry ingredients. Add this to my dry ingredients. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pastry cutter and I'm going to incorporate the butter into this. See, I'm doing it in like a cutting motion. Incorporate all this cold butter into the flour until the flour becomes like sand. Scrape it off when it gets too much. Just perfectly cut the butter and incorporate the frozen butter into the flour. Incorporate it all in. Okay, now you see the consistency of that? That's like sand. That's the consistency that you want. All right. Now it's about fully incorporated. So now I'm going to add my wet ingredients. I'm going to add my wet ingredients to the flour. And I'm going to mix it around. Fully incorporate my wet ingredients into it. I'm going to knead my flour. Just like this. So it all comes together. See how it's coming together perfectly. Came together perfectly. Then I'm gonna take my flour and I'm gonna start distributing it over the apples. See that came out perfect. That's your perfect dough right there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start distributing my dough over my apples. I'll start distributing my dough over my apples now. That's how I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tear a piece of. So I'm gonna tear small pieces off of the dough. And I'm just gonna start distributing it over Yep, I'm just going to start distributing it over my apples until it totally covers my apples. Breaking small pieces of it off and just evenly distributing it over the top of my apples. But as I'm distributing it, I'm flattening it like this. You're flattening it out a little bit. I'm going to flatten it out as I distribute it. As much as possible. Yep, see my apples are almost completely covered. All right, and that's the cobbler. So, and I'm gonna bake this in an oven that's preheated to 375 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. And that's your apple cobbler.